Today's episode sponsored by the Hockey Wraparound, the best product to take your composite stick to the street while you train. Available this week in-store and online at skatersnetwork.com.au. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Hockey Life podcast presented by Skaters Network. Today we have a great friend of the podcast, Sera Dogramaci. She has played junior levels, seniors, women's, IIHF 5 times for Turkey, ECSL, coaches, private coaches, and has been a part of IIHF for many years now. We are honoured to have her on the podcast. Sera, welcome to the Hockey Life.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
We are pumped to do this episode because we've had this teed up for a couple of weeks now, and we're happy to have you finally in the Stick Studio, aka the podcast studio.
I know. I mean, this used to be Tech Tip Thursday studio for part of our filming with the goalie tech tips. That was awesome, and now we're back in a different format. But I think it's fitting because personally, I've played against you. You've saved 99% of all my shots on goal. No, I haven't. That's right, 0.
I'm sure you have. Everyone has.
How did ice hockey and this whole world that you've been a part of start for you?
All right, so disclaimer, there's going to be a whole lot of name dropping because I have had so many people involved. Like, this hasn't been just me. There's obviously lots of people that have been influential. So if we take it way, way, way back.
Yeah, let's go right from the beginning.
Woo!
Let's go all the way back.
At the school I went to, so my sisters and I, we all went to the Hills Grammar School. I know, very, very privileged education, so grateful for it. We played field hockey at school. And so, like, I was in primary school, so I was playing senior school sport, but since I was already there, the teacher, she got me involved, whatever. On the team, the Morgan family was there.
No way.
So we're talking Troy, Cindy, right? But at that time, it was Tina and Lauren were both playing field hockey. So Lauren was a year younger than me. Tina was in my eldest sister's grade. And obviously, they're a hockey family. They, Anyway, so in 95, my sister Esra got recruited to the ice. And so I went, and Blacktown Flyers. So I went in and watched those women's games for a year, like watching her play. I'm like, this looks like fun. I want to play this.
How old was she when she was getting in? Like, what kind of level was that?
Well, straight up women's, because she would have been, I want to say 16 maybe?
Yep.
So, I mean, girls couldn't play Bantams, midgets, anything like that back then. So, but for me, I was 12, so the end of 95, I wanted to play. And my sister, who's a forward, said, you should be a goalie, you'd be good at it. And so being the youngest in the family...
I know what that is.
Right?
The oldest sibling, like, I need to practice on...
And we're gonna shoot
I need to practice on someone. Yeah.
So,
I think you're great for this
Yeah, you do it,
position.
you do
like,
it.
You got the build, everything.
So, I mean, she claims that it's because I had the mentality for it. Call me crazy or whatever, right?
The goalie DNA was in you, yeah.
Right? It's special weirdness to do that. So I was 12 and I went to Blacktown, like development, whatever. And I have only ever been a goalie. So so 96 was my first season playing. So Blacktown Flyers, the Pee Wee #2 team, my first ever coach, Mark Stevenson. He's my hockey dad, still to this day.
Yeah, the OG.
Yeah.
And the original set of pads, what
Oh my.
Yeah, this is a big one because, like, and how did you come to the pads? Like, so what was the first?
So it was, leather buckles, straps, all that, but it was like the big, thick, filled with whatever animal hair in there, right?
Yes.
And it was like the toe ties were the leather straps that loop around and
Were they
buckle.
brown? Were they brown?
No,
leather?
they were white ones. They were these dirty white Vaughan ones.
Yes, sick.
So borrowed from the rink and until I got my own set.
They had that nice little hint of mold in them.
And the
little smell.
But magic. Obviously, lots of saves already been made with those pads. They had good magic about them.
Yeah.
And gloves, do you remember gloves? Like, I know my first pair of
I can't
hockey.
remember my first pair of gloves. But
did they have holes in the palms? Because that's all I remember is like I didn't have gloves.
no, I think they were
palms.
so the ones I borrowed from the rink were pretty decent. But then my first set that I owned were second-hand ones, belonged to Nick Windle.
Wow. Really? Shout out Nick Windle.
So that was my first pair of gloves I bought from Nick Windle that got me through, I don't know, however many years.
Yeah.
Because his name was still written in it too. I have no idea where they are these days.
That is so cool. And obviously wood paddle back then, for sure. Yeah.
Super heavy, all that kind of stuff. I'm from the era where I did have a Curtis Curve stick.
Nice.
Okay. That is epic. And do you remember like the first pair of like pads that you went to the shop and got like what you're dreaming of? And
years of wonderful stories. So my sister, she was going every summer off to the Olympic Oval in Calgary, and she was training with like the Canadian national team, this kind of stuff. Really, really cool. And then Melissa Rulli also went, I think, 1 year or something like that. So my sister, being in Canada, she bought me my first set of pads.
So
like
good.
I don't think I had any say in this. Like I've got no idea, right? And this isn't like, you get someone sized up whenever. Like I can't even remember how she did it. But anyway, they were a pair of Vons.
Epic.
They were black and white.
Sick.
So Ruli came home, I think, earlier. She brought one pad. When my sister came back, she brought the other one.
Yeah, you gotta avoid that excess baggage charge. Like,
oh yeah, you get stitched up.
I would have been lacing up in that one and just like butterflying on one side. Like, this is gonna be epic once the next one comes. This is gonna be so good.
Surprised she's not hopping on the plane just with it strapped to her leg.
Get that through security.
Imagine customs just seeing just one massive pad, and they're like,
well, because they have their hockey bag, right? And how much are they going to fit into it? Well, you take one and you'll take the other.
That is so good. Okay, so you're through Development League, and then you're coming into Blacktown, everything, the world of the Flyers.
Oh my gosh, what
do you remember a lot about those kind of first seasons? And were you starter, or was there like a lineup of goalies?
It was me.
Yep.
Whenever I couldn't make a game, Dave Dunwoody would jump in net.
Really? Okay. I heard about him being a goalie back in the day, and so that's true.
Yeah, so we were the worst team in the league. The other so there were two Flyers teams. So we were the worst one. The other one was the best one. So they were coached by Dion Dunwoody.
Gotcha.
So on our team, we had a bunch of play-ups, Rachel White, Todd Stevenson, like all these kids were on our team. There was one game we played against the other Flyers team that we lost 31-1.
Ooh, really?
And I remember on the score sheet, it had 101 shots on me that game. Jeez. And this is me, like, I've got very, very new to hockey still, no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Hadn't learned to skate before, like public sessions, whatever, as a kid. But like, I got no hockey skills, and there's me losing 31-1, and I'm like, this is fun, I'll just stick with it.
101 shots.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what though? I guess if you start like that and you have an experience like that, it's only up from there. Like you can,
You don't want to be on
playing after something like that. That means you really love the game. That you really.
But also, like, if you're a new starter and you're on a team where you're always winning and not facing shots, what are you actually learning? What's that doing for your development?
Yeah.
So.
And so, who was kind of goalie coaching you at that point? Like, how did that work? Like, how did you kind of learn and,
You're looking at
Well, so I remember that back then, from the newsagent, you could buy the hockey news.
Yeah.
That's so sick.
Right? Like, a rarity if you could find it.
Do that? That's sick.
So that was way back. The only thing you could watch on TV was like SBS would have NHL highlights.
Yeah, I
right?
remember that. Yeah.
So there was no internet.
Yep.
There were maybe VHS tapes if you got your hand on them.
Yeah.
It was figure it out on your own mostly.
That is awesome. I mean, that is because being a goalie is so much more complex in every way than forward or defense. It's like there's so many more things to think about, and just all the different scenarios that have to run through your head, like with movement and everything. You're obviously a natural at it because you just picked it up, and because if you didn't have the coaching there, were there things that as you kept progressing and then you got coaching down the line, I'm jumping ahead a bit, were there things that you had to like adjust or change, or it all kind of just comes together?
So I'll admit that my memory is pretty shocking. Call it too many pucks to the head or whatever.
Preach.
But there's a lot that I just don't remember. What I do know is that there were players along the way that had a bit of an idea, and they would just give me tips along the way, like, what is a butterfly? Gotcha. What is a butterfly,
so just
right?
The players that are older than you, that have a bit more experience,
right?
Like just a little bit ahead of you, you can tap into their knowledge.
Yeah, so they would just, I still am massive introverts. Just when I get to know people, I will talk. Yeah. Put me in a room of like people I don't know, I don't talk. Anyway, so it wasn't me at age 13 asking people for help. Yeah. Like I was just incredibly quiet. Yeah. So people would come up to me and tell me whatever. This. Like I remember there was this one guy, and I can't remember if it was like a development session or a peewee, whatever it was, but this one guy who obviously had a cricket background and was telling me how to catch a puck was like you do in cricket. And then I think back to it and I go, oh my gosh, that's the worst advice ever.
Yeah, that's a terrible thing.
But I knew no better.
Yeah.
And he's trying to help, but he knows no better.
Yeah.
It's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah,
the puck's
so you're like take advice, try it, like I don't know, maybe not. So it's like experimenting constantly.
But I knew no better, so I'm just relying on other people and their knowledge.
Yeah. You're just like, hey sis, just rip some pucks at me. And let's just figure it out.
Oh man, we did do this story. So we were at the Morgan household in Cherrybrook, and we were there on a weekend. They were going to shoot pucks at me. So they've got their goal net in their garage, and then my sister's there. She's got pucks, and then I'm beside the goal net putting my pads on, and I didn't have my pads on yet. So I had one down getting the straps done, and my sister decides she's just going to take shots, like she'll hit the net, whatever, right in the shin.
Really?
That I still have a little divot in my shin from it. So that's my reminder of just don't be close to the net, or just don't shoot if the goalie's not ready.
It was such a thing. Siblings in nets, or often the younger sibling always was put in the net.
Yeah.
It's.
We had the Herberts, remember them?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. Their dad coached me for a bit. Good old Peter Herbert. He did actually.
Legend, yeah.
So when did that transition start? Like, so it was just like training. You're out there, just blocking shots. But then when did that shift happen where there was maybe like coaching on the weekends or private sessions or kind of
still not a really big thing? So the legend AB, he was running his Great Saves Australia camps, and I know I went to a couple of them. I know I wasn't a regular.
Yeah. Did you?
The washing machine. Did you get shot at with the washing machine?
No. Oh, okay. But he did actually have a puck machine, not the washing machine, but there was a puck machine that he had brought out.
Okay, cool.
So
amazing. Yeah.
But Peter Herbert, for a little bit, like I don't remember any of these things being on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Because in our family, like I'm the youngest of 4 girls, we're all teenagers in high school, whatever. Like, you can't just prioritize me in the family. Like, everyone's got their own stuff going on. Yeah. So, like, hard on my parents, right?
Yeah.
So,
even though they knew that you were the number 1 hockey player in the family, just...
I never made an all-star team. But what did happen, like, throughout my career, I guess, like, I've just always been around at the right time.
Right.
There's lots of opportunities I haven't necessarily pursued. It's just been like, oh, here you go. It's kind of handed to me. So 96, my first year of playing in the league, that year they were putting together their first, I think at the time it was called Australian Elite Women's Team.
Gotcha.
Essentially the first Australian women's team, right? Yeah. So there was a team from Boston, Assabet Valley. They were going to come down, play a series of games. At the same time, Women's Nationals was happening. And Women's National, that was its 2nd year of happening.
Wow.
Right? Because it started in 94, right?
Okay.
And I think it was like New South Wales, Queensland, probably Victoria, like not a lot of teams back then. So they were going to do it at the same time. Now, I didn't make the state team because I didn't even try out for it because like I was still playing Pee-wees. I remember trying out for the Pee-wee state team and I didn't get in, and I'm like, whatever,
Yeah.
like not a big deal to me.
Extra ice
I was
at
just
that point,
there.
yeah.
But there was a parent that came and said, "Oh, you got cut. You should have definitely been on the team." I'm like, okay. Anyway, so the Australian team, I didn't try out for that either, but I was at the time. So I think that year my sister had already moved across to play at Canterbury, and Terry Jones was the coach. And so I was going to their trainings as an additional goalie. Like, my sister's got to go anyway, so I would just
tag along,
jump on the ice. Like, you need a second goalie, I'll be there.
Yep.
And so, because Terry knew who I was, and he was coaching with the team as well. But about a few weeks before that camp tournament was going to go on, one of the goalies got injured. A goalie I'm still in touch with. So Nat, who lives up in Queensland. Anyway, so she got injured. They needed a goalie. And so I get the phone call, like, haven't tried out for the team or anything.
Epic.
And so I had to run it by the team, whatever. Now, at this point, I'd only been playing hockey for like 8 months. And now
awesome.
I'm on the... right?
Wow.
And I was now on the first ever Australian women's national team.
That is so
That
cool.
is so sick.
And Cindy Morgan was the other goalie. So, like, someone like older than me, way more experienced. So she was mentoring me along the way. Like, I was just learning from her, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just
you're just
here.
along for the ride type thing.
And then, like, and I don't remember this, but some people said that I mean, every goalie goes through this, that there were personal stuff that was going on with Cindy, and then it ended up that I stepped in for a game where, like, I don't remember this. I just know the story of it.
Gotcha.
I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
I'm ready, coach, I guess.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
So that's that.
What an opportunity. I mean, that's just fate that would happen and you would get that opportunity. Like, oh, that is the best. And so that was the split, Pee-wees, and then you had to go and play women's after that.
Yeah, so as soon as I was done with Pee-wees back then, it's straight off to go play women's. Because my sister was already at Canterbury,
Yep.
I went off to play at Canterbury. At the time, I mean, Canterbury do now. There were 2 teams.
Yep.
So I played on the second team with, like, Tina Morgan, with my sister, with all these other girls that were playing. They were good times. I've still got that jersey. I still have my Blacktown jersey too. Some jerseys you just never give away. Yes. Never give those away.
No, they're great. I love those ones.
I mean, that was a big thing. Like, back when you were going from Pee-wees and in Pee-wees, was it like every club had 2 teams for...
Women's had like 10 teams at the time.
Really?
And you know what? It was competitive.
Wow.
So I don't want to, like, disrespect what we've currently got on now, but I have not played in the New South Wales Women's League in years
Yeah.
because of the
There's like
skill
a
level.
disparity in skill level.
So I don't want to, so I
the
don't
lower line.
necessarily want to go and play on a team where I'm just standing there doing nothing.
Yeah.
I would go and help out with some of the weaker teams just to give them a bit of a chance. But to me, it's also like, I've done all this. We need more women
There's probably
goalies.
someone
like,
else that deserves
give someone
that
else to go.
opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but back then it was competitive.
Yeah.
Like, Bears had 2 teams. There were a couple of years I played for Warringah Bombers.
Yeah.
Sadly, there's no, like, photo evidence of me playing for the Bombers.
Really?
But
Surely someone out there has a photo.
So
like...
2 years I played for the Bombers. The rink had shut down, so we were training out of Blacktown.
Oh, so you were there during that transitional period?
I missed the Warringah rink.
I never got to. I don't think I got to.
You know what I don't miss? The stairs up to the change room, because they were so narrow and trying to.
Goalie pads.
Yeah, right.
Jeez. And I heard there was a very small rink there as well, like the whole.
It'd always
school
fog up
Bombers
too,
rink.
like always.
Yeah, right.
And then my mum would drop us off, and then she'd go to the Woolies next door, get groceries done, pick us up, and away you go.
Wow, that's hilarious.
Now, I want to talk about progression and ask you this question because, like, I found it so interesting talking to different players about kind of where their kind of progression happened and at what points, and, you know, was it plateaus or was it just a consistent, you know, line? Because for me, it's like my whole hockey time was improve, get to a point, flatten out, and then realize that I needed to be better because everyone else was better, and then do something different and keep going and that. So when you look at your hockey career kind of in its totality, was it just a constant progression, or was there times of like different methodologies within the, you know, goalie system, which AB kind of touched on? Or like, how did it go for you? Was it, you know, if you can map out that journey?
Yeah, so for me, it's lifelong learning.
Yep.
Always. So I'm always picking up new things because the game changes and we have to adapt to it. So in my HSC year, so 2000, I stopped playing, just way too many reasons. Like I was playing futsal, and soccer was the easier, cheaper, more accessible option at the time, right? Like split family, my sisters had moved out, like my two elder sisters were already overseas, whatever, relying on my mom. Didn't have a driver's license yet. So I stopped playing hockey for 5 years. So there was, and this is also why I never played Worlds for Australia. Like in 98, we went over to Boston, so the first traveling Australian team that went over, and that was a whole lot of fun. The next year I couldn't do it because of just family situation. And then 2000 was the first time that Australia sent a team to Worlds. And I wasn't on it because I wasn't playing, but it's like, I have no money, Anyway, so then when I came back in 2005, because I was at uni, I could drive, I had my own income, it's like, now's the time to do it. The game had changed. And I was still wearing my old pads and my whatever, right? So I needed to relearn the game, figure out how to skate again, because I hadn't skated in 5 years, all that kind of stuff.
5 year break, that's massive.
5 year break is huge, right? So I was, what would I have been, 17 to, can I math, 22 that I stopped. So 22, I come back and I've got to basically relearn the game. And then in 06, I moved over to Turkey. And then different game over there to what I'm used to, right? So then in 2009, when I came back to Australia, it was again, relearn the game. And then, oh my gosh, what's a butterfly slide? I've never been taught that. We don't do skate saves anymore.
That's what I was saying.
We don't do pad stacks. Like,
I love a good pad stack. Bring a pad stack.
So it was all these new save techniques that I didn't know about, and I had to learn. So it was constantly doing that and figuring out what I have to do. So I'm been back in Australia since 2009 and relearning the game, and obviously the talent around us, like in National League, just keeps improving. So for me to figure out how to adapt as I keep getting older and older and all that kind of stuff. So I can't, like, for me, it's kind of been continuous, but just different changes along the way.
Now obviously you said that you played like football, soccer / futsal. Were you a goalie in that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
but I would play out as well.
So, okay, cool. So, like, you were still, like, physically active. You sort of, like,
I know,
still had that, like, you considered yourself an athlete still at that point. Were you had that in the back of your mind? Like, you know, at some point, like, I would like to go back into hockey. So you're trying to stay fit, trying to stay dialed.
It wasn't staying fit. Like, I always just enjoyed sport.
Just competing?
Just whatever. So school sports, I'd get involved. Like, athletics carnival, I would do it every year. Cross country, I do it every. Swimming is not my thing. No, but like even when I was in year 12, like I was the only one in my grade that competed in the cross country. So of course I got first place.
Was it
right? But I was always doing that.
Other than like soccer.
There were netball was never my thing ever. Same with basketball. At my school, like, I don't have a horse, but horse riding was a program. So there were a bunch of things offered, but soccer was always just the easy one to just access and do.
And do you think that, because I guess there's kind of like two schools of thought for athletes where they're more specific, they try and just focus on one sport.
Oh my gosh, multi-sport.
I agree.
Always multi-sport.
I agree.
Because you draw, I mean, like, there's the sports scientist in me too. There's one, me being a parent, but then the sports scientist in me is that multi-sports are going to create athletes.
100%.
Right? Because you're going to draw from different things. Like, if you're playing that kind of team sport, like your soccer or your field hockey or any of your football codes, whatever, you're going to draw from those, like the structures, the strategies, whatever, and the
create parallels,
awareness, whatever, right? If you're going to get involved in something like gymnastics or diving or martial arts, you're going to get your spatial awareness from that. Like different sports are going to give you, like baseball, cricket, whatever, you get that hand-eye coordination, whatever position you play. So it's be a multi-sport athlete.
100%.
This is also why our kids aren't signed up for hockey yet.
Yeah, okay. I think the other problem is you can't really just be a hockey player because there's not enough ice time. Like if you want to be a professional like at that level, like you can't get enough.
Overuse of the same muscles, I find you can sort of like, especially the goalie position.
You're limiting yourself.
Yeah.
You're very much limiting yourself if it's just the one thing you commit to it from an early age.
Yeah. I definitely found that was the case with me because I did a whole bunch of different sports during high school and in primary school as well. And I like looking back, I find that sort of stuff, like what you said, you can draw parallels. You can see, okay, like I can kind of use this for hockey as well, or that sort of stuff. So yeah, kids, just get out there and just mix it up.
But even just take time off. Like hockey doesn't have to be a year-round thing.
I mean, Gretzky did it. He was
Crosby did it. Like all these
yeah.
guys, like they actually take their summer off. Like, okay, they might still be training, and then, pre-season, whatever, jump on the ice. But take time off. It does not have to be a year-round thing.
I'm a big believer in that, Sarah, and I've actually taken a 5-year summer that's continuing. So when I come back, it's going to be really good. I know it. It's going to be great.
Come play on my team. We need players on a Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, there we go. I've got to rust the spot. You've heard it first. I'm coming back. Here we go.
I'm trying to get him to do inline because last time I played inline, that was some moves, a few toes there.
We're coming back. So that is amazing, Sarah. So talk to me about Turkey. What differences in the game did you kind of find when playing over there?
Do you know what? It's it doesn't ring true these days because they've come a long way. But back then, when I moved to Turkey, I wasn't allowed to play with the boys.
Really?
So I had to play in the
like
women's
a cultural
league.
thing, or is it just like?
I don't know. I don't want to say it's a gender thing, a political thing. Like I don't know. And I still don't think girls are allowed to play with boys.
Interesting.
So I'm sure I could have, this is not me being egotistical, but I'm sure I could have played in their men's national league because I was like 23 at the time, but wasn't allowed to. So I played in the women's league, which massive disparity in skill level. Like there was one team that we played against that, if I had my time again, like now that I look at it, I'm like, my gosh, that's terrible sportsmanship. I was hovering on the red line.
Really?
Because my team always kept the puck down their end. So the team would feed the puck up to me, and I would put it back in so I would get assists that game.
Yeah, look, we've
it
all
was
been
never
there.
going back the other way.
We've all had a run-up.
So I remember that game, but I look back at it now, and I go, oh my gosh, that was terrible to do that.
I mean, so talk to me about the
But that's the kind of games we had, right?
Okay.
So women's league was not fantastic for me, but I did it. But it was one rink at the time in Ankara.
That's what I was going to ask is how many rinks, and so everyone's just playing out of one.
Like, no joke, it was like a ridiculous amount, like 8 or 10 clubs, plus your figure skaters and all that kind of stuff, out of the one rink in Ankara at the time, right? So we're all competing for ice. So I do remember with the club that I was with Başkent Yıldızlar.
Wait, say that again?
Başkent Yıldızlar.
Okay.
Capital Stars.
Wow. Awesome.
Say that 10 times fast.
That with their men's team, I would train with them, but it's only if someone could give me a lift home, because training would finish at like midnight or something ridiculous, right? And I would never drive in Turkey. So I was relying on public transport. So if there was a bus that wasn't going to get me home, well, like, now what do I do, right? So I would train with the boys as much as I could. And then the women's games just do it. So that was my, I think I played 3 seasons. The last season I played was with a university team. Not that I went to university over there, but they needed a goalie, and I went and played for them. So
was your move like more? You just wanted to be with family there, or was it more hockey focused?
No, definitely not hockey focused. So my mom, at the time it was just my mom and I at home. Everyone else moved on, whatever. So it was my mom and I, and then in 2005 it must have been, she retired. And she said she just wants to go to Turkey to be with family because, like, her mom, my grandma has now passed, but she was there and, like, all family, whatever. And so she gave me the option. She's like, we can keep the house and you can stay here, or you can come along for the ride. I'm like, I'm coming along for the ride.
Wow,
Like, just why not? So Mum and I, in 2006, we moved over. I mean, it was fine at the time, but it wasn't for me. That wasn't home for me. It was not. It was. We grew up without family around.
Yep.
So I never got to, like, grow up with cousins and
Yeah,
all
I'm
that
the
kind of
same,
stuff,
yeah.
right? So it was nice that when we had, like, significant celebrations,
Yeah.
religious stuff, whatever, that we were all at my great uncle's house and just connecting with family. Like, it was beautiful to finally have that. And then, like, when you have your cultural religious celebrations, to be in that environment. Because we never had that growing up.
Yeah, it's
like,
a different feeling when
right?
you're part of it.
So I fully appreciate that. It made me understand my heritage a little bit more. Like, oh, this is why we do what we do, right?
Yes.
But it kind of got to a point of, like, I got to be back in Australia. That's my home.
Yeah.
Plus, there was Reynolds in the picture too.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So
long
that's-
distance was not fun. Like, we're talking,
So you were you started your relationship, or, like, I guess maybe talking before you went over to Turkey?
yeah.
Wow.
So we were on the same senior team at the time.
Yep.
So I was essentially his first coach. So
You still hold that against him?
yes,
You're coaching him on the dishes? Like, do it better. Hey, you missed the spot.
so our relationship. So in 2007, he came over to visit. That was his first time out of Australia.
Whoa.
Awesome. That would have been so
That was a
cool.
massive cultural shock.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so he came to visit me, and at that point, like, we didn't know where things were going to go, whatever. But we were also talking a time of, you know how you could get, like, the phone cards, upload them with, like, cash, and there was a number
Yeah.
to call, and then you call home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
Until Facebook became a thing.
You
until
had the minutes loaded up on there, yeah.
yeah, that was us,
That's
like,
epic.
legit long distance
Kids
before.
under, like 25 are like,
What is going
Before
on?
video calls, whatever, all that kind of
Why
yeah.
don't you just FaceTime them?
Yeah.
But
There would be kids out there thinking that, like, don't they know how to use it?
and like this international phone card things with the number that you punch in and
Yep.
yep,
Yep.
That's so
and then
cute.
emails.
And you had to kind of, like, coach him along, like,
Oh,
don't do
God.
that, because, like, that's not
No idea
that's
what.
not
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
That is awesome. So then,
So 2000 I came back to Australia.
Yep.
So I've done my domestic time in Team Turkey.
yep.
And then I'm back in Australia, and then so this was also an era where in the Olympic years, only the top tiers played. So in 2010, Australia wasn't playing at Worlds. They were sending a team to Calgary for, like, a couple of weeks to do games, whatever. So I found out who the coach was. It was Rocky Pageant. And I gave him a call. I'm like, oh, so I heard that there's, national team, whatever. I'm like, what's the go? How do I get involved, whatever? And he said at the time, oh, well, we've just had selections. We've got our team picked. But, yeah, we'll stay in touch, whatever. Anyway, again, a little while out before the team's going away, one of the goalies had to pull out. Guess who gets the call up? So that was me back into the Australian national team program.
Yeah.
And Calgary was fun. And I'm still in touch with my billet family.
Really? So everyone went over, got billeted out, and then did you kind of, like, stay in one area and then you just played different teams from?
Pretty much. So we were in Calgary. We did, for the life of me, I can't think of the place we went to, but we did take a bus down and played, like, a mini weekend tournament. But
This was in the Olympic facility?
no, we did go visit, but we didn't train there. So we were attached to the Edge hockey, Edge school, right?
Yeah.
So the Billet family, their daughter, who was 16, she was at the Edge school playing hockey and had her driver's license, because that's what they do at that age. You got to drive the tractors, right? They get their license early. So Steph was the one that was driving us to and from practice and wherever we needed to be and
That
stuff.
is so awesome.
Was it the
So-
one where they have the speed skating track?
That's the
around
Olympic
it?
Oval.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
went and visited that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I got to play. I think I had a game there once, like
Yeah,
back in the day. Yeah, that's
it's awesome facility. But
it's so
then
cool. That's where the cool
sadly
running
they have-
scene where they're on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Really?
that cool running
That's
scene.
the
That's
one.
the Calgary facility there.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sick.
But then the program got shut down. But let's not talk about that. Anyway, so that was me back into the national team.
Yep.
And then 2011 was the Newcastle tournament. So I was trying out for every team, third string goalie, 3 years in a row. And then
What was your mindset like being that third string goalie? Was
Well,
it frustrating for you?
it was incredibly frustrating because I'm someone that will do what's asked. So if you tell me that you need to be working out 5 days a week and here's your program and whatever, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And so for me, the frustration was that there's other people, which I'm sure you guys would know of this scenario, that aren't doing the work but are getting the rewards. Like that's reality, right?
Yeah.
So that was frustrating for me. And then every year I would ask, okay,
What do I need to do?
And I would get an answer and I would do that thing and come back next year and like, I can do this thing. So for 3 years, third string goalie. By year 3, I had enough. And I'm like, don't need this anymore. So I gave the coaches a call, and then I was told, well, Sarah, it's just because you're too short.
Really, that's what they finally gave the answer as.
So I'm like, well, if you were never going to pick me, why didn't you tell me that from the get-go? Because...
Or you're hoping for a late growth spurt or something? These coaches,
Right?
like, oh, she'll shoot up soon enough.
Yeah, when I'm
She's-
28.
Yeah,
Yeah, she'll grow. But here was the kicker for me, and this is why I say this, because I don't sugarcoat stuff, right? Because I know what it's like to receive that, so I'm very mindful of the message I give to goalies and players that I'm involved with, right? So if you are never going to pick me, why don't you tell me that from the start? Because I have to take leave from work to be at these selection camps.
Yeah.
I have to pay my own way to be at these selection camps. I'm away from my family to be there,
You're training your butt
right?
off.
I'm making all these sacrifices. And you dangled that carrot for 3 years?
Yeah. And I mean, that just tells a story of such like the old mindset with hockey, even to the point of like, hey, you're tall, you should be a defenseman. Or, you know,
You can't be a
you're
goalie unless
this,
you're
you
6'2"
can't be
or
this.
whatever, right?
And I'm so glad that I feel like we're past that, because there's so many like trade-offs. You're super tall, you're probably slower to move. But if you're shorter, you move faster and get to the position. Like, yeah. So, I mean,
Tall
that's-
goalies take longer to drop into a butterfly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I say this, because like for me, always, we are people first and we're athletes second.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be viewed.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that experience because I learned from it, but you know, I'm not going to say it was a waste of time.
Yeah.
But that was tough for 3 years.
Yeah.
So what do? Hey, Team Turkey.
Of course. As if you wouldn't.
So I kept that really quiet.
How did you reach out? Did you have contacts?
Oh, of course I did.
Yeah. So
then
you
people
could.
I'm still in touch with.
Yeah.
Right? So the coach of my team at the time, I knew he was involved with the women's national team. So I reached out to him and I'm like, hey, you want me to play? Like, what do we do? So we went through all the paperwork. The 2011 tournament, I was never actually listed, like not even on the long form.
Yeah, right.
So even though I was on the
Not
bench.
even as like a squad type thing. Yeah, right.
So even for the tournament, like there was never a pass for me, anything like that. So whatever happened that the paperwork never went through, which, you know, kind of worked out in my favor, right?
Yeah, it's sort of meant to
I
be.
played exhibition games, but I never played in Worlds. So I was third string, just on the bench, shouldn't have been there because my name was never even there in the end. So we put all the paperwork together, pleaded that case to IIHF. Like, I've never actually played for Australia at Worlds.
Yep.
I don't need to sit out a 4-year period, whatever.
Yeah.
I've done my 2 years domestic in Turkey.
Yep.
Got my citizenship, just went to get my Turkish passport, easy enough.
Yep.
There you go.
Next thing I know, I'm playing for Team Turkey.
So good. That's epic.
Yeah. How did that feel, like that, you know, putting on the Turkish
Do you know what? It was nice.
Yeah.
It was nice to be able to do that, and to be, I guess for me it was, what's my end goal? I want to play at Worlds.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah.
So I'm not very good at taking no for an answer. So I'm always going to find a way to get something done, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I did. So what was nice, that first tournament, it was in Iceland. It was a bit of a, I know, right?
Beautiful.
It's
Reykjavik or Akureyri?
Reykjavik, my first year.
Yep.
My final year was Akureyri.
Yeah, awesome. So cool.
We'll get to that. So for me, being in that Turkish environment, nobody paid to be there. It's all government funded.
That is epic.
Plus, we get spending money
That
for
is
the
what we
week.
need. That is what we need.
So we also got spending money. Everyone got spending money.
Really? You got per diem?
You got a per diem?
So good.
Right? So they cover my long haul flights.
Yeah.
I went to training camp that first year. So that training camp was Izmit, I think. So close to Istanbul. So I went to training camp because like my first year, I should probably be here.
Yeah, you feel like
But very quickly, I realized how different the Turkish team is. So again, don't want to be disrespectful here, but
at that point.
Australian team, you're paying your way, you're fighting to earn your spot. Team Turkey, everything is paid for. This is a nice holiday.
Yeah, okay.
So the mentality that I've grown up with was very different to what was in the change room, to the point that at the games, between periods, I'm like, I'm not even going to go into the change room until the coach is ready, because I just could not deal with that
type
environment.
of conversations that were happening there,
Because there was lots of yelling and blaming and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I can't deal with this. I'm just going to...
Okay.
And there was one point where there was one game that, like when the coach was going into the change room, that's when I would go in. There was one point that he was walking in the change room and I've got up and he's like, "No, you stay out here." And he went and blasted the girls.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was also nice that I had that level of respect from the coach, all that kind of stuff. That tournament, my first TISO watch, thank you very much.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So
nice little flex.
that was
I like
not
that.
not the original band. So that was my first TISO watch for best player Team Turkey. I also got best goalie of the tournament.
Let's go.
Awesome.
Made new friends along the way. There was a girl on Team Belgium who scored the overtime winner on me. But like friend, whatever. But this is the other thing, right? So this is, if you're not enjoying it, then why are you there? So when she scored and they won that game, and all I'm doing is smiling because I'm like, okay, we lost, but this is nice. Yeah. And then the chatter from Team Turkey was like, you shouldn't be happy, you shouldn't be smiling. And I'm like, I love what I do.
I'm enjoying the journey.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, and then there was the guys that were doing like the DJing, the music, whatever. I think that for the last game, they came up to me and they're like, "What music do you want playing during the game?"
What?
Awesome.
So that was nice.
What a guy. What a beauty.
Right? So that was a really fun introduction to Worlds.
Yep.
So next season we had a new coach. That tournament was in Hong Kong, and from that point, because the timing of it, right? So it was during AW season because it was a February tournament.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm not coming to training camp. I will see you in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So it was nice that I got to call those shots too.
Yeah.
So I met the team in Hong Kong and I knew my way around. And then like the other nice thing was, because I'm very grateful, again, not being obnoxious here, that I have traveled a lot. And I love traveling by myself.
Yeah.
So, on our days...
True introvert, of course.
So days off when the team can go and do whatever, and these girls just want to go shopping, I want to get absorbed in the culture. And so when our coach is like, okay, everyone, you have to go in groups of 3. You 3, you're set, yep, be back here at this time, whatever. And then I just waited till the end, and he's like, see you in an hour.
Yeah.
That's so sick. And you're like, how about 2?
That's epic.
So
And did you find, was there a shift in that kind of locker room mentality with Turkey?
It
like
got
to that
better.
Yeah.
But there was, I don't want to get into all the detailed stories. There were things that I just didn't appreciate. There were things I didn't want to be associated with. There were things where I'm like, no, this is not acceptable. But if people aren't going to be held accountable, I don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
So I played that year in Hong Kong. I played the next year in Spain. I'm like, I'm out. I'm not dealing with this anymore. And I'm not going to get into why.
Yep.
But I'm like, I'm not playing for this team for a while.
Yep.
So at the time, Stu Phillips was coaching the women's national team. Like, he was already involved. And then we did have a little bit of a goalie shortage, and he had asked if I would come back to play for Australia.
Yep.
So the ruling at the time was I would have to sit out for 4 years.
Yeah.
And so I didn't sit out 4 years, but I did sit out 2. And we were having this conversation. And then I was asked to go and play back for Team Turkey because they were also having a goalie issue. And I really had to think about it because I was like, this kind of goes against my values.
Yep.
The situation at the time. And it was a hard decision to make. But then I had a chat. So Jeff Helbrin was our Sirens coach at the time. And I had a chat to him about it. I'm like, what do I do? And he's like, go play hockey. It's not like you have to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I did.
Nice. Yeah.
So that was a tournament in Romania. That was interesting. They don't know how to.
Romania a couple of times.
They don't know how to cater for vegetarians, and there were 3 of us on the team.
No, that,
You just
No, it was.
I mean, you know what? I had the privilege of going to Romania, beautiful country, lots of things. I've never had deep fried cheese, like just the slab of that. Man, that was a new one. That was good though.
So, you know, when they're giving you, like, when the hotel restaurant, they're giving you a plate and it's got, like, meat and mashed potato, and you're like, oh, I don't eat meat. Oh, would you like more potato?
That's not what I meant.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where, there was a girl on the team who lives in Canada. So it got to a point where we went to the supermarket, found the plant-based options, the alternatives, and took it to the hotel restaurant and said, cook this.
Yeah.
And we got reimbursed for it because, like, my gosh, you should provide this. Anyway, so that's my Romanian story. The year after, it was a change of coach, and 100% things have gotten way better.
Yeah.
So you can see that. So for me, that last tournament, it was in Iceland, so in Akureyri. The reason I went was because I got to play against Australia.
Ooh.
So good.
How G'd up were you for that game?
Oh my gosh. No joke, game of my life. We lost 2-1.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was the year Australia
Did you come?
won.
I'm just imagining in the change room, like, just Australian player, like, profile face pictures up on the board, and Sarah's like, okay, shoots left, no good backhand, loves it.
She's got weak ankles.
Won't pass, will pass, takes the slap shot from the
Well,
point.
I mean, that was the good thing for me. Like, every single person on that Australian team,
Yep.
I've played against
Yeah.
or played with. Like, Olivia Lass was in net, Tina Girdler was the other goalie for the team, right? And Stefan Sharna, like, close friends, they've house sat for me, they've babysat for me. And
What a
I'm
great
playing against them.
opportunity to, like, international setting and play, like,
What
you know,
year was
your
this
home
again?
country.
2000, we were the last tournament, 2020, sorry. Last tournament before COVID shut everything down.
That was the one they won, and then they didn't get promoted because no other tournaments competed.
happened.
Yeah,
So this is why I'm also grateful for it.
So
It
that
was
win
always-
doesn't count. It's 0-0.
It was always
Shut out.
always going to be my retirement year, and I'm so grateful I got that retirement in because
Did you medal
COVID
in
shut
that
everything
year?
down. No.
Okay.
No. We it was a good tournament for the team, and, like, things just keep getting better and better. But yeah, it was. I called the shots on my retirement. I played every minute of that tournament except the last 90 seconds because it's like, well, I'm retiring. The next one after me, let's welcome to Worlds. Get 90 seconds in.
That's so sweet.
Gotta do it. Yeah.
So I'm third to watch at that tournament.
Really?
Nice.
So I collected 3 in 5 years.
That is awesome.
Was it emotional for you, that last game?
You know what was this? So
Because you
I
knew
love
that it was
love
happening?
sharing this story. My first year at Worlds, Iceland's goalie Gudlag Torsteinsdottir, I hope I said that right. So we played against each other at tournament. That same year, so 2014, we were both at the Viramaki camp as goalie coaches,
Oh, that's awesome.
and we kept in touch. So at my last tournament, she was there as a lines person. So she was a zebra now.
That is so
right?
cool.
What was really, really nice, and this is what got me. My last game, when, you know, it's all done, and I'm just absorbing all the cool things that's going on. And I'm one of the last to leave the ice. She's there at the gate. She's got the puck in her hand, and she goes, "This is your final World's Game puck."
Oh my God.
And she started crying.
I'm getting
And
goosebumps.
because she was crying, like
Yeah,
I go, why are you crying? And she's like, because this is the last time I'm going to see you in this environment. And that got me, and I'm like, bawling my eyes. Like, I'd held it together for so long.
I just got chills just hearing that. That's
like,
beautiful.
for someone just to be that thoughtful, like, got the
Yeah.
game puck. This is my last game ever for Worlds. And she kept it. But she also had a photo. Like, I don't know how she managed that from the first period or something. The photo's been taken. She went, got it printed, and gave it to me as well.
That is so
God bless her.
thoughtful.
That is beautiful.
That is epic.
Like, that's, and I always say this, like, you know, the medals and all that kind of stuff, they're nice, but it's those moments that mean so much more to me.
It's the relationships and,
Right?
and those moments that's,
It's the lifelong friendships. Like, hockey gives you the best friends.
yeah.
Yeah, it totally does.
So that's why it was emotional for me, because good luck went to that extent for that. Just
That is so cool.
Oh, mate. Okay.
so maybe our kids will play against each other one day. We'll see.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Similar age-ish kids.
That would be awesome.
So yeah.
Friends around the world. That is so good. So Sarah, 2023, your hockey world now. Tell us about it.
I'm
Coaching.
retired.
Yep.
It's so good. I don't ever have to train ever again. Because for especially the women, you know, having A-dub in the summer and then you play winter, like, you don't get time off.
Yeah. Yeah, like that must be
It's
a
tough, and
slog.
seasons overlap. Like, when you get back from Worlds, it's already week
You're ready
3
to-
of the
yeah,
winter comp, right?
yeah.
You've missed, like,
You just hit the ground running straight away.
so I'm just so glad that I don't have to commit. I don't have to do like a team warm up again,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
next morning, rolling out of bed, feeling that little bruise on your arm,
Right.
or on the ribs, or you're like,
That's all right.
"Oh."
I've still got, yes, we managed my hip injury for the last few years to get me through retirement, and now I'm actually seeing my sports doc today to had my MRIs done, update, see where we're at, and what do we need to do. I would really like to avoid surgery,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
goalie hips.
Let's
Yeah,
let them
right.
do
So retired from the high level stuff.
Yep.
Had a wonderful A-dub career,
Yeah,
a
what's your
long one.
favorite moments from the A-dub? Obviously, you got to win in Canterbury, in Sydney. I forget
Yeah,
what
that
year it
first
was.
one, 2016,
Yeah.
the 2016-2017 season.
Were you a starter for that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that,
You
yeah.
played the grand final.
So we actually had 3 goalies at the start of the season. So we had Ella Licari and Alex Steffen. So
That's
we
right.
were 3 goalie. Alex then stepped away from the team. I feel like possibly injury. I honestly don't remember. And so then Ella and I were sharing. And then, Ella played the semi-final game, and then I played the gold medal game, and it went to a shootout.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
I remember
we
watching. I was
won.
watching on the live stream. That was a cracker of a game.
It was, it was fun because to do it, I mean, as much as I love Blacktown, Canterbury is my home rink.
Yeah.
To do it there, Reynolds was there, Tarek was asleep in the pram. With how loud it was, he slept through. Like, he was like just over a year old at the time. So that was pretty special.
Yeah.
And then this past season, going into it, like, I was supposed to retire in the 2021 season, like that was going to be my last, but then COVID,
course.
and then COVID, I'm like, okay, well, it's going to be delayed. For me, again, just everything works out in the end, right? So my boys are a little bit older. They can appreciate it, all that.
Yeah.
So again, for me, retiring my own way, I'm so lucky that injury didn't cut it short. I'm so lucky that it's not like there's people like, oh, you could keep doing it. I'm like, yes, I know I can, but now's my time.
Yep.
I'm at top of my game.
You have that perspective to sort of like step back and
I
look at it and
don't- yeah.
assess and go like, no, this is a good time.
But it's
to
like,
do
well,
it.
you know, like what are you known for, and then how do you end up retiring? So I didn't want to be like, oh, well, I'm just a backup goalie and now I call it quits. I'm like, no, I'm here.
Yeah.
Now I'm done. I'm going to finish
Yeah.
on the high.
Yeah.
So to win the gold medal, obviously nice. To have my boys on the ice with me,
That was cool. I saw that.
To have them there at the game and like actually cheering for me, like for them to be old, so 5 and 7 years old, to be old enough to recognize that mum is out there playing in the National League and she just won a gold medal and now she's retired.
My mum is a badass.
Right? For them to have their Sirens jersey that has mummy written on the back.
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and then, and obviously having Reynolds there because he was a hockey husband this season and he was fantastic. Like if I didn't have him or that support, it was always going to be tough. And we've had tough seasons when he used to coach AJ as well, and we had games clashing, and it's like, well, I'll bring the kids to my warm-up, and then you come here from your game from Penrith, and you take over.
It's like logistical nightmare where you have to like coordinate everything.
And like his parents live 6 hours down south. My mom's overseas. Our siblings, I didn't have any in Sydney at the time, really. His sister has her own family. It was just like the Sirens family had to legit become family. They were the ones. Anyway, the other wonderful story I want to share with my retirement season. So when we go about gold medals are nice, but what's nicer? So a few years ago when we played in Adelaide, you know how they have the putt kids around? Mm-hmm. So there was this one girl that I went and I talked to, so in Adelaide, and she had, I think she was wearing the Rush jersey at the time, or maybe her club jersey. And I just got down on one knee, kneeling down, and we were just chatting. And her name is Sophie. And just that 5 minutes alone, I became her hero. And so I stayed in touch with her family since then. And it's just been nice because I never, ever thought I would be in that kind of role model position. But I'm so aware of it now that I'm very mindful of my interaction with kids because of how much it actually means to them.
You see that look in their eye and you realize like, oh, they're
so this is where it's got to the point that Sophie was on the side of, do I stick with goalie or do I still be a player? That 5-minute conversation convinced her she should be a goalie. She now wears number 33.
Wow.
So good.
That's beautiful.
Like, I never thought that was ever a thing. So she's adopted my number as her own. She's got Sirens jerseys with 33 on the back, with her name on the back, and I've signed it, whatever. So for the grand final, that finals weekend, she knew that was the last time, because we didn't go to play in Adelaide this season. She knew that was the last time that her and her family would see me play. They all drove from Adelaide to Melbourne.
Really?
Wow.
That is awesome.
For that finals weekend. So my family, their family, they all sat together in the stands and had a wonderful time. And
that is so cool. Just having an impact. That is. And what you say is right, because it's so often I think like as players, you know, you think that you're just like looking at your own game and your team and everything, but there's other people watching and those kids are looking up to that as where they're going to end up in. And I think there needs to be more kind of, you know, conscious awareness and try to encourage
so when a
players.
kid comes and says hi, you say hi.
Give that kid your snapped hockey stick. That's what he wants.
But
He wants that stick.
Right? If they ask you to sign something, you sign it. You give
I've
them
actually never been asked to sign anything. So
well, maybe we'll
Brian,
just
has that happened to you? Has that? It has, hasn't it?
Every game.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
I sound like a douche right now. Well, after every home game, I guess. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like I try and be a little bit more mindful of that sort of stuff, especially like with a half snap stick or something like that. I tell the guy, don't, even if it's at practice, like
don't put it in the bin.
Hold on to that, sign it. If it's the whole team or some of the guys, like I've had a few moments where, you know, there was I think it was a few weekends ago, there was a little girl that had a sign that said like, "Go Bears," and just like a little piece of A4, you could see she just did with like her texters or whatever. I saw her and then I'm like, 1 second. And then I like run into the change room because I had a few ready to go. I just grabbed one, just gave it to her, and the look in her eyes was just made it all worth it. Like, so, and it's just those little, just spend that little bit of extra time with these, and it doesn't matter like what age as well. Like, give people your time because you know they come to watch you, and
you don't know the impact it's going to be on them.
Exactly.
How much it means to
100%.
them.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a lot of effort for us, but huge difference for them.
Now, having an impact, Sarah, coaching. I mean, you have big part of New South Wales and Ice Hockey Australia's coaching program. And how did that lead into Arizona Coyotes?
Oh my gosh.
I've been wanting to ask you about this because we didn't know anything about it, and we just saw on social media
There I was.
this call out.
in Arizona, like,
Oh my gosh, I should have brought the jersey in.
It's like,
Because
Sarah,
legit jersey, like my name is stitched on, it's got the 5 stars. It's a legit NHL
we'll follow up.
jersey.
I'll put a photo in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like it's not a fan jersey you can just buy. It's like legit someone's. Yeah, blew me away.
Awesome.
Okay, so Coyotes, let's take it back. There's a podcast called In Goal Mag. Obviously goalie content. They interviewed a guy called Devin McConnell, who at the time was with the New Jersey Devils. All right, so former goalie, not NHL level, former goalie, sports scientist, is in the strength and conditioning space. So he was also plugging his book that he had written. And it was all about like how to do testing if you have no budget, if you have some budget, if you go gold standard, if you want to test like your strength, your power, whatever,
wow,
right?
that's definitely one for Aussie goalies right there.
So I bought that book and I read it and I really liked the way that it was written and laid out. So I found Devin on the social, so like on Instagram, and I followed him and I reached out to him, and then we started conversation going on. So then I had him do, during the COVID years, I was doing lots of stuff online. Like we were doing, I was doing weekly interviews with people.
Yeah,
so
I
I had him on
remember that.
that,
Yeah,
the
that's
Wednesday
cool.
Wisdoms.
That's right,
So I
yeah.
had that going on, just keep content going while we can't be on the ice. And then I ran the goalie coaching symposium. We did that online. I had him on presenting at that. So bunch of stuff that we've kind of kept in touch with. Anyway, last year, on his socials, he posted photos of their dev camp. And so I just reached out to him with a, hey, how do I get to come to one of these? And then
You never know if you don't ask.
and so then he's like, yep, let's look into it. Hit me up again in January. So in January, I hit him up.
Yep.
We got the paperwork going. Like he asked for like resume, cover letter, because their GM wanted to know more about me, whatever. And he's like, pack your bags, you're coming.
Let's go.
So good.
How, like, did you, like, jump through the ceiling when you got that email? Like,
Oh my
I would have been
gosh.
buzzing.
It was just fantastic. Because if you don't ask, you're not going to know.
Exactly.
Right? So
Yeah.
I'm like, what's the worst that happens?
The worst thing they say
no.
no. That's it.
Okay, well, I
You're
tried.
in the same spot.
Whatever, right? Anyway, so yes, I kept it quiet. Only a very small number of people knew about it. Obviously, my family. So got everything together, was in touch with their executive assistant, Erin, fantastic human, and then met their player development director online, and then, yeah, flights, all that kind of stuff organized, and I went there. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, what is an Australian female coach doing at an NHL dev camp? I do believe I'm the first Australian coach that's been at an NHL camp in that capacity.
I can't think of anyone else.
No,
That's first in over 100 years the NHL's been around.
right there.
That's historic.
Right? Like,
right there.
obviously, Stormy's been at dev camps as a player.
Yeah.
I don't think
coaches.
any Australian has been there in that coaching staff.
So cool.
That's sick.
So it was fun.
That's the first.
I didn't know what I was doing. I obviously knew no one except my friend Devin.
Mm-hmm.
So do I remember all the names of everyone? No. Like, did I know what I was doing? No. So
You're just like
turns out.
absorbing everything, right? Like you're just taking
Yeah.
it all in and just trying to like.
And when I
soak up
say
as much
introvert,
knowledge,
like I was so quiet for the first 2 days.
yeah, just fly on the wall.
Like, so I was there kind of shadowing their development goalie coach. So Charlie was fantastic. So I was on the ice for the set, like decked out and everything. I had, I've got Coyotes gloves.
Really?
Let's
Did you
go.
Like tracksuit, all that kind of stuff. I had a stall with my name written on it in the coach's room. And then I was like, oh, so what do I do about a stick? And they got one. They're like, where do you, righty, lefty? I'll take a lefty. Where do you want it cut? Da, da, da. Turns out it's the stick of a former assistant coach. He's no longer with the club. I'm like,
Gotcha.
well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, decked out and all that kind of stuff. So I was on the ice for all the sessions. I wasn't I chose not to interact with the goalies because there were enough voices on the ice, and I didn't want to interfere with anything. But I did, like, who are you, where are you from? So we had, like, obviously North American goalies, a Czech goalie, German goalie, Swedish, maybe. Like, there were 7 goalies in total. So it was cool to get to know them, and, when there are sticks of people that are taller than me and whatever, like, I was very, very short.
So within that environment, what kind of stuck? Because, I mean, you've played, IIHF, and you've been to kind of development camps and kind of seen a lot of coaching throughout Australia. What stuck out as so vastly different in their system or how they went about things? Was there anything that...
The sheer volume of things they have. So Arizona, obviously very dry, hot environment, similar to Australia, right? Non-traditional market. In Arizona alone, someone was telling me that there's about 20 rinks in Arizona. That's the number we've got in Australia.
Yeah, right.
Right? So do other states have more rinks? Yes, absolutely they do. But this is a non-traditional desert market, whatever. The Coyotes themselves, they're in a rebuilding stage. They don't own stuff. No. So Mullet Arena, because it belongs to Arizona State University, they don't access that in the off-season, so I wasn't allowed to even go because the team can't access it's not theirs. Their training facility... So their training facility, it was a 3-pad rink, but again, they don't own it. So their training times were bound by what the rink owners, management, whatever, gave them.
Wow.
Right? So...
Because obviously the uni has their season they're getting prepped for as well, because they're in Division 1. They're a Division 1 program.
I mean, I'm going to just say yes. You know more than I haven't looked into those details.
ASU's now D1, so...
So lots of things that they don't actually own, but how are they making use of it? So for me, it was the sheer volume of people they've got. Like, this is dev camp, right? It's not their team, right? But to have 40-odd players there that have come from everywhere, all my expenses covered, again, per DM, here's some cash for you.
So good.
So that was, because I didn't, there's an envelope sitting for me. They're like, oh, we were told to give you this. I'm like, what's this and what's it for? Anyway, I don't know.
I think I know what this is.
But then, how they structure their ice time, the number of coaches that are on the ice, the number of people, this, that, whatever. It's just so scaled up from what we have. And every one of those staff there were paid. They all got full-time positions, whether they're like the main goalie coach, or if they're a development goalie coach, or they're with the development team, like with the road runners, right? Like, if wherever they are, their marketing team, the number that they had there, and they're all in full-time paid positions. And so that's why they can keep doing stuff. The fact that I didn't have to pay a cent to be there. Right? Like
the support network that they have at each individual level, at every role, they have an assistant to help that person as well. So just making use of what they have access to, which for us in Australia, that's always been the case. Like, okay, we don't often have access to ice, but when we do, what do you do with it? So making the most of that. What did you notice in terms of, like, I'm assuming, because, I don't know, shock, I've never been to an NHL development camp. I know,
one day maybe.
In another lifetime. What did you notice in terms of their, like, assessment process? Because obviously they've done all the scouting work beforehand before they draft them, but what did you notice in terms of, like, what they look for in terms of their, like, the assessment process at that development camp?
So I wasn't involved in any of those scouting assessment conversations, but I know what went on. So they have a whole scouting team that obviously went to the draft. One of their scouts is Mike Gensel, as in Jake Gensel's dad.
Wow.
So I kind of kicked myself for not going and saying, and just fangirling, basically, right?
Yeah. Do you have any spare jerseys of your son, like in the trunk of your car or something like that? Like, can you send one over?
I mean, saying that, I was in fangirl mode all week. I think I counted 8 or 9 of the coaching staff were former NHLers.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Get to that. But yeah, so they obviously had their scouting, and then they've got their coaches who keep in touch with those players throughout the year, wherever they go back home to. And then like the goalie coach, he said he's got to fly to Finland, and the timing of that to go watch that player and be in touch. And hey, while you're here and that goalie is there, can you just take him out for dinner and whatever? Like just things that I've never been exposed to.
Yeah.
At the end of Dev Camp, they all had their individual meetings. And because of the sheer number, there were multiple meetings going on at once. So some of them, I guess the top prospects would meet with Bear, as in Andre, the head coach, and their GM, and then I don't know if anyone else was in the room. So the top prospects would meet with them, and then the goalies obviously with the goalie coach and whoever, and other players with other coaches. So after the squad game was done, it was just like meetings for a few hours, right? So that kind of assessment. They had a psychologist there who, like, throughout the week, he touches base with every single person there just to get a bit more of their, who are you as a person?
Yeah, their mindset.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then throughout the week, you know what was really awesome? Every single ice session, their GM, Bill Armstrong, was there watching.
Really?
Like, he was so involved. It was just great to see, like, just that visual presence.
Yeah.
That he's there. He's not just sitting behind a desk.
No.
He's actually there because he wants to see what his investments look like.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was really awesome. I mean, he wasn't the only one. There are obviously other people there as well. But just to see, like, how invested they are in essentially what is their product.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's their assets that they're
100%.
looking at, right?
Yeah.
But yes, watching how they are on the ice, how they, I guess, follow instructions, but everyone's talking, right? So when they're doing their strength and conditioning sessions, those assessments, like they did their fitness testing, where people sit, how are they in that gym setting, like all that kind of stuff adds up. So bottom line, be a good person, because they're the ones that get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They take into account the whole thing, because it's not just
not
the
just your
athletes
skill
itself.
level.
They want to know what your personality is like, how you deal with
How you interact with
adversity,
people, how are you as
interact
a teammate, how
Yeah.
it's be a good person. That's your number one thing.
So epic.
It really was. But with the coaches, so that many former NHL coaches, my most favorite part of camp were the conversations at dinner.
Yeah.
Because there were times like it would just be us coaches, whatever. But them sharing stories of their glory days, it's just epic.
That's so sick. Yeah. any that you can share that stand out without naming names
Or giving like the PG ones.
Yeah. Like, obviously, like after a long day, probably have a couple of beers.
Well,
they
you know what's
would have a couple of
interesting?
beers, listen up, and
So some of the older guys were from an era before 9/11, where they would take the commercial flights.
yeah.
And, you know, the pranks that you would pull on people, because there's no social media then. The things you could get away with.
Oh yeah.
But then, obviously, once 9/11 hit, NHL mandated that they all have to be on chartered flights.
Yeah.
So you'll never see them
Makes
on
sense.
commercial planes again, right?
Yeah.
I get it. But also being more mindful of what you do, because when someone takes a video of it and it goes on the social, it's there.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah,
hide
once it's
from
on
that
the
stuff
internet, there
anymore,
forever,
right?
Yeah.
So stuff like that. So I'm talking about their days in development camp. You know, it wasn't you're not on a group chat. You're getting a letter in the mail that tells you where to be and when to be there.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Like, you're
I'm
in.
sure their camps were like way more like brutal, because they probably wouldn't have had their player agreement where they have to have a certain amount of, like, there's obviously a time limit. You can't have them like bag scan for 4 hours. Like there's a player agreement where they're like, yeah, you can't kill these guys.
Just how it's set up. And even for their main camp, when they go in, there was one guy, he was saying that, you know, you get your envelope at the start, and depending on the thickness of it, you knew how long you were staying.
Gotcha.
So like, sweet, I'm here for the 30 days, or, oh, I'm going home in 3.
There's a difference between like the first round draft pick and then the 8th round draft pick. It's like one.
Don't bother unpacking.
One bill is 100 for you.
But even like some of them, they've been through multiple teams, so even saying like how they found out about getting traded.
Oh, that's so good.
Right? So, like, I mean, this is stuff I've never been exposed to, so this was fascinating for me. That they're on the road, so they're in a hotel room, whatever, and then they're just watching sports news, whatever, and they're like, oh, this person's being traded.
That's me.
That's me. And then the coach, because obviously the coach or whoever is watching the same program, oh, hey, we need to chat.
No way, that's ridiculous.
Or then like, you know, you're at your home rink or whatever, and the coach says, oh yeah, coach wants to see you for like 2 minutes, and you go, and they tell you, and you come back, and your equipment's already packed up.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. I've heard of that little trick.
Just brutal, right? But yeah, oh my gosh, so many stories. Like I'm still trying to put all my notes together, but what I still need to catch up on is actual journaling. Like there's the coaching side of things and what I take away from it, but then there's like the whole experience of it all was unbelievable.
Are you going back every year?
Oh my
Come
gosh,
on.
I wish.
Just keep sending
I know,
an email
right?
in January. Just be like, hey,
Right?
I'm ready,
Just
I'm
hit up
going,
every
I'm
other
going.
team.
She sends 31 emails to every NHL team. Just bulk email. Hey,
Well, I mean, you've already been to one, so
Right?
you're pretty much
I
an
think
NHL
great
coach.
social media. You're great at talking. I think it's awesome. And you know,
was
if you get any
fantastic.
+1, +2s, we'd love to take the podcast on the
Sure.
road as well. You know,
Sure.
we
Totally.
could document the whole thing. Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, let's make it happen.
100%. So I mean, looking at that, what is your thoughts and hopes for goaltending in Australia? You know, looking down the next 5-10 years, like
My hope, which has always been my hope, is that we get more support.
yeah.
I think that's always been the biggest thing. The thing that I preach is we don't have enough goalie coaches in Australia, right? And like, I get it. We all work on volunteer time for the things that we do at that level. Like, put the private stuff aside. At the IHA level, we are 100% on volunteer time. I get it. Not all AW, well, I don't think anyone gets paid in AW, but AI, I know some coaches do get paid. We are not at a full-time capacity stage. I don't know if or when we'll ever get there. We don't have enough goalie coaches in Australia. So what does that mean? That means that if you're the head coach of a team, you're the head coach of the goalie too. You don't need to know all the technical stuff, but you need to know how to look after your goalie and integrate them into practices, into games, how you rotate them.
Be more mindful of them.
It's all that kind of stuff. So at every coaching course that we do, so Mark Stevenson and I, we facilitate the ones in Sydney. We don't do the Newcastle ones because that's already taken care of, but everything else in Sydney or in Erina, Mark and I facilitate those. So I obviously take care of the goaltending module, which doesn't exist in level 1, but we throw it in there because a lot of coaches don't go beyond the level 1, and they need to know basics of goaltending. So my hope is that we get more goalie support at all levels. So I would love to see with every national team that there is a goalie coach that travels with the team. Because when you get to Worlds, you need that support. I know.
It's such a condensed...
Right?
And as a goalkeeper, you're such an island in your own world as it is. To not have any other support of someone who totally understands what that game looked like for you through the mask, you need.
Yeah, and it's totally unfair to say, oh, but you two goalies, you can just look after each other. That's not fair.
Yeah.
You need just that sounding board of someone else. You're not at that level. You're not learning anything new. It may be making a bit of tweaks in the game, but it's just to have someone that you can talk to while you're there and that's got your back and your support. It's got to happen. And I know this from, one, having been a goalie at Worlds and what it's like, but two, I was the U18 women's goalie coach. So I know the importance of having that. Now, some of our teams do have it. I don't like that sometimes it gets hidden behind, oh, but you're an equipment manager. It's like, no, I'm here as a coach. I can help with the equipment management style because we always duplicate our roles. Yeah. What's your primary role? I'm here as a goalie coach. What's your secondary role? Well, I'm assistant manager or equipment manager, whatever it is, right? Yeah. So I think that recognition is huge, but it's got to start from the top and then, kind of work its way down.
And I think it's so important because goalie coaching, without having goalies progress and get better, nothing pushes a player to get better at shooting or improve his game or her game than having to try and score on a really tough goalie because, you know, if you're not...
It can make or break a tournament.
Yeah.
Really.
But even in the Australian level, right? So in the A-Dub, and I'm so glad that this happened and I was involved with it, and let's hope I don't get in trouble for this. We have an import goalie ban.
Yep.
Because what happened when other teams were getting import goalies in, so we have our season and then we go to Worlds, right? The Australian team. So it's always find out when Worlds is and you backtrack from that. So 2 weeks before the team goes away is when you have your A-Dub finals and you backtrack, right?
Yeah.
So there was 1 year, it was the year I was in Hong Kong actually. So I knew that I couldn't make it because I'm obviously a different division. So we did bring an import goalie out that year.
Gotcha.
But Melbourne had an import goalie. Adelaide had an import goalie. So for that finals weekend, one of our Australian goalies was back up all weekend. The other one didn't even dress because there were two other goalies for that team. Wow. So you can imagine that what's their preparation like going into Worlds? And so the team didn't perform great. Like we know that a good team starts from good goaltending, right? Yep. Again, not being obnoxious, but that's facts. The reality, right? Facts. You have to have a strong 100%. Defense to have a strong offense. So they had been warned before that you can't abuse that system. You need to look after your Australian goalies. And so at the next AGM, you guys had your chances. We're done. You cannot have import goalies anymore. You need to invest in your locals. Yeah. Best thing that ever happened. Because from that point, for Sirens tryouts, we were getting 6-7 goalies every year. Whether they were just like, you know, I want to be here for the experience, whatever. There were years I played for the Sirens as the only goalie. I had no backup.
Wow. Yeah.
Which was tough for me. It's not the notion of, but if you have someone pushing you, it was I can't get sick or injured.
No, yeah.
Because there is no one else.
Yeah.
Right?
The player's going to have to put on the pads.
I've got to play all 14 games over these 4 months, and I can't get hurt. Like
your precious cargo.
Right? So for me, that was tough. So the fact that we get that many goalies even showing up to tryouts is huge now. Yeah. And then we see how many girls have gone on to play U18s or national senior team, whatever, and how successful they've been. And best thing that ever happened. I would love to see it in the AI, but I know that's different because you guys run differently.
Yeah.
So we're not even going to get to that. But
yeah, that is an interesting question though, to think about it as like a holistic.
Well, they did that last year. They did that last season. Coming from post-COVID, the AI said only player imports last year. So a lot of guys were getting a lot more opportunities last year, and I think it was good. It was refreshing to see, actually. So
that's why
it definitely is something that, like, if you do have an import that is a goalie, they can be such an asset and a game changer in situations, like.
Yeah,
and it's, you know, and,
but we've
it's
got
hard
quality
because what
goalies
do you do?
too.
Exactly, and I mean,
right?
As the players coming through, there's only so many spots for that position, so it's very hard.
But look at your starters around the AI league, right? You've got national team Kimmer, obviously, legend of the game. I don't know how many seasons he's got left, right?
10, 15, 20.
I hope.
Unlimited.
I hope.
Your next goalie, Charlie Smart, right?
Yeah.
Starting for the Northstars.
Dornbos.
I am so glad the Dogs are investing in him and looking after him and giving him that start. Yeah. Like, fantastic.
Yep.
Alex Tetro.
Yep.
For CBR Brave.
And Toivonen as well.
Right, and Toivonen. And then in Adelaide you got Friedrich and Trinka.
Yep.
Right? These Aussie guys. It's so fantastic to see how some of the teams, not all of them yet, but how some of these teams are really investing in their locals.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's so important.
Yeah.
Because then, like, and I also know, this kind of takes it back a step. Like, I know that there is currently, again, I'm going to get in trouble for this notion that let's invest in high performance. You're not going to get to high performance if you don't invest in grassroots. Because all these guys up here that are like in their 30s, whatever, they're going to retire, move on. How are you looking at what's coming through?
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm like, my gosh, support
you've got to
your
think
goalies.
long-term, like long-term vision for that sort of stuff.
So I need support at the grassroots level to build that up.
And I'm with that. I think the big question that I've always thought about comes down to how do we recruit more players into the sport to make a bigger pool that's going to push each other competitively, because it's like we can't just rely on, Jimmy plays hockey and he tells his friend about it and then they come in. It has to be wider than that.
It's got to be accessible, right? And I know some people have been trying to do it and push for it and this kind of stuff, but there needs to be a free or an affordable entry into the sport to start with.
Frictionless
right?
entry.
Like first shift program.
You give your $100 deposit and here's the gear and you've got X number of sessions to come and try it. If you want to do it, okay, here's realistically what you need to know. This is what it's going to cost. And it's not to turn people away, but if we want to make this sustainable and retain people, here's your reality.
Yep.
And you never know. This kid that starts playing at 10 years old may end up playing on the national. I started at 12.
Yeah.
Tina Girdler, right? She played for Australia within 5 years of starting as an adult.
Yeah.
Good on her like that. Yeah. That's incredible.
Amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not all about we've got to get all these kids in at age 6 and build them up and they're all going to play for Australia one day. No, it's not it, because our reality is so different from what's traditionally there. If an adult wants to get involved in the sport, cool, come. Here's all you need to know. Here's your pathway to the national team if you want to do it. Here's your pathway to recreation hockey.
Yeah.
No,
That's a whole other conversation.
That's one where, with the coaching and stuff that you've been involved, it's going to be a massive obstacle for hockey in Australia in general. There's a lot of friction going into the sport, and then also maintaining and trying to have that player retention at that grassroots level.
But even after people retire as well, how are we retaining those resources, those people, right?
Yes.
You retire from AW or AI, have we given people an opportunity to stay in the sport? Again, people have day jobs, they've got families, they've got other responsibilities. So how do we keep investing in them to keep them in the sport rather than just losing them completely?
Relationships.
Yeah, because I guess if they kind of retire and move out of that world, then all that knowledge from all of their experience goes, and then it's up to someone else to come in. So I think that's a good point, Sarah.
But there has to be some sort of investment to make that happen.
Yeah.
I totally agree that, and I hope this happens one day, that nobody has to pay to play on the national team.
Yeah.
Because Team Turkey never paid a cent. Got spending money every year I went away, right? I hope Australia can find a way to get there, but there still needs to be a significant investment at our grassroots level. The talent space will fill itself up. That it'll work itself up, but it's that high end and the low end.
You will always find the cream of the crop within certain groups, but it's just you need that more volume of people coming through because.
But it has to be accessible too, right? Like for where I live, I'm kind of central to all the rinks, which is fantastic for me. But then if you get someone that's signing up at, say, Alexandria, but then the reality is, well, hang on, you've got games in Newcastle you have to go to.
Yeah.
Are they going to buy into that, or are you going to offer them something else like, ooh, maybe we can do an in-house program for you, and you're still involved in the sport?
Yeah.
But I know in New South Wales right now, we are at capacity with our rinks. So as much as I would like to say, hey, NHL's coming to Australia, it's going to grow our numbers, where are those numbers going to go?
Yeah, that's true. Need more rinks.
Penrith is back on sale.
Saw that. Got some money lying around?
I saw the petition. I saw the petition that people crowdfund it, or everyone's getting together, and I think that would be awesome because that was.
You need the government involved.
It was
private
as much as
funding.
That was such a great location. So much good hockey got played there, and it's such a disappointment that.
But then the new ice facility thing that they're building, and they took the rink out of that.
I know, and what did they make? Where did they make an ice climbing wall instead? How did we go from double pad to single pad to now? No, we'll just have an ice climbing wall. Who's that benefiting?
For skiing and snowboarding. No, let's put one in Penrith. This one little.
I think that could be great, and we could have crossover there. But we needed a rink. It's an ice sports facility.
What I mean. The rink is way more important than a little ice hill that you can literally just go Perisher. You got Threadbow. You got all that sort of stuff. It's right there. That when I heard that news that they and they try to do it a little bit on the DL, real sneaky, And then when people started commenting online, they deleted or disabled comments. I'm like, come on.
How is that a bigger market? Everyone loves skating. I don't know anyone who ice climbs. Probably great. You know, I know it's a
But
big
that
sport,
cut out
but
all the school sports as well, right?
Yeah.
Everyone that was going skating for their school sport, now we've lost that potential to tap into that market.
Yeah, I know.
Frustrating.
Western Sydney needs a new rink. Western Sydney.
I know. Anyway, Sarah, I'm sorry, we have to wrap it up. Thank you
Stories
so
for days.
Oh
much.
yeah, you got your appointment to go to.
I think we've covered it all. Progression, goalie, politics.
Hey, if there's anything we missed, we'd love to have you on again. We can talk other topics.
Part two.
Whatever's up in the
We
horizon.
never talked
for you.
about my Goannas season. There was 1 year I did play Goannas.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, let's
We're gonna
jump
squeeze
into that
that in?
quickly. Yeah.
Why that
let's jump in.
happened?
How did that happen?
Yeah.
So, 2015, pregnant with my first child. Obviously, 2015, 2016 would be a hard season to play in, but would it?
Yeah.
My child was planned around hockey. Yes, I played against Australia in my final year, but also that 2016 year tournament in Spain, Australia had been relegated. So that was, hey, I get to play against Australia. I'm not missing out on this.
Yeah.
Let's backtrack it. If I have my child in October, then by the time March comes around, I can go play at Worlds.
The life of a female athlete.
So then backtracking from that, okay, well, if I want a child born like October, how much are we backtracking? 9 months. Yep. Okay, cool. We can make this work. So in
Made it work. Around hockey, that is great.
So do not recommend it. So in June-ish, I hit up the Sirens coaches with what are you thinking for goalies?
Yep.
And I got the response of, oh, well, we know you're out for this season. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Nope. Think again.
No, I'm not. Like, anyway. And they said that they would like 2 goalies committed to the team for the whole season. I'm like, okay, that's fair enough.
Yep.
Hey, Goannas, if I miss the first few weeks of the season, are you guys okay with that? Sure, we'll take you. We need a goalie. So when the season started, I was still pregnant.
Yeah.
Really?
So my firstborn Tarek, he was born mid-October.
Yep.
6 weeks after a C-section, I played against the Sirens.
Really? That is amazing. That has got to be the record, like, come back to hockey.
Do not recommend it.
Yeah.
How were those shots to the stomach?
Oh
Did
my
you feel those ones?
Gosh. So, I because that was my plan and because I'm fiercely determined,
Super competitive.
I was still running the day before T was born.
Yeah, okay.
Like I very waddled penguin, smashed out 1K on the treadmill the day before he was born. A week after he was born, I was back doing yoga, whatever.
Let's go.
So then I got on the ice after about, I think, 5 weeks or something just to see, like, can I move? How does this feel? I'm fine. Hey, guys, I'm ready for next weekend. And it was a game at Canterbury, so it was at Sirens home.
Yeah.
51 shots on for 5 goals.
Really?
Welcome back to hockey.
Wow. And then, like, after the game, you go back to breastfeeding and stuff. Like,
Actually,
I mean, that would have had to happen. You must have, in the change room or after the game, or did you have a break?
just
in between
bottle it,
periods,
here you
you
go.
blanket
Bottle,
over
okay.
tea. You got the blanket over. Sorry,
Oh my
ladies.
gosh, ask Mel Matheson when you interview her, ask her about her parenthood stories in the early days.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But yes, literally it was pump
Gotta
in a
get
bottle,
on.
here you go, gotta play, like pump at home, whatever, and then when I get home at night, whatever, and then trips on the road, just taking my pump with me and just storing it.
Yep. As a new father, I know that struggle. I understand it. You got to get that milk. You got to have it in the fridge. You got to do it at the right times.
Can I just say, really good at. I've been very good lately at being vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable. I hated breastfeeding.
Yep. Yeah.
Hated it.
Yeah.
Putting it out
I can
there.
understand why.
Yeah.
Some people love it. Some people love that connection with their child. Like, oh my gosh, hated it.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay. That's my year with the Goannas.
Wow. That's
My one season.
incredible.
And so I finished my career on 104 games in total in the A-Dub, first goalie to crack the 100. And you can imagine now, like there were 2 years that I was the only Sirens goalie, so I racked up my 14, 28 games. Every other year, you're splitting with the goalie, so you're getting like 6 or 7 games a year. So you can imagine how long it takes and how long you've got to stay in the sport, how you've got to keep affording $2,000 a year for that privilege.
Because the AW seasons are so short too, right? Like,
yeah, it's, well,
is it like
there's
20
talk of
games?
expanding it. No, not even. It's 12 games plus your finals.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So you can imagine how long it takes to even rack up. And again, like, I am so grateful that I was able to stay around that long to get those games. I was talking with Jaden last week because he was trying to get the numbers down. I'm like, yeah, so it was 8 games Goannas, which means 96 for Sirens. No, I'm not coming back for 4 more games.
No,
I'm done. I'm done. I'm old. I turned 40 this year.
Left on a high, mic drop, peace out.
Right?
As a champion,
But that's my retirement. Like, I'm 40 this year now.
Yep.
Both kids are at school.
Yep.
My hip injury is, like, it hurts on a day-to-day basis. I have done everything I wanted to. I got best goalie of the season 3 times. I've got my 3 gold medal. Like, I'm content. Someone else can do this now. I've done everything I've wanted to do as a
and now
goalie.
you got your second half, the coaching and all that sort of stuff.
Now it's time to invest in coaching.
Yeah.
That's me.
Sarah, thank you so much for being a part of the Hockey Life podcast. That was
amazing.
epic. And we're going to have a follow-up
Part
one
2.
because we haven't even gone into East Coast Super League.
Oh my gosh!
You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
we're going to save that for the next one. Thanks
Thank
for watching.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having me.